We are so excited to talk to you guys today about how to stay cool when outside is not cool.
Yes.
So, this is Rebecca Messer. I'm the co host on the Training Them Wisely podcast with our host, Renee Christensen. If you would please give us a 5-star rating and leave a review, it really helps our ministry to grow and continue to help other parents and grandparents and other people in influential roles with kids be able to really help teach them how to grow in their walk with the Lord and continue to disciple their kids and grandchildren because authentic, loving discipleship matters.
Yes. So, staying cool.
It is not cool outside right now.
It has been miserably
Right
hot
there.
here in North Carolina. We're in something called a flash drought, where it's been 90s plus a lot of days. And usually we're not 90 plus a lot of days.
It was inspiring when my husband told me this past weekend that we were going to be under a heat index warning this week. I was like, oh, that's what you want to hear when you're pregnant in the summer.
Yes, of course. Isn't it though? And yeah. So, and the feed here is running out because it's been such a drought. So this morning we're on our homestead. We got to go in the middle of the summer instead of in the fall and process 3 pigs outside. So that was inspiring as well. So we're going to talk about how to stay cool because
we don't just mean temperature wise.
We don't just mean temperature wise. We noticed that whenever we came in that the kids were a little grouchier than they sometimes are. And how can we just
And I've noticed when my kids are outside and they're playing like on the back porch or whatever, and it's hot outside, even if there's water, their emotions and everything, it's much shorter fuses.
It is.
And so one of the things that we were just talking about was it's important to be aware of these challenges. So like when it's cold outside, people can go through seasonal depression in various parts of the country because there's not as much sunshine. But in the summertime, tempers tend to flare a little bit more because
I remember there were all the riots before in the summer. Whenever there's heat, studies have shown that it does increase anger. But as believers in Jesus and as examples for children that we are wanting to disciple, we don't want to have that issue. We want to stay cool no matter what the temperature is outside. So one of the verses that I was looking at is in Ephesians, 2 of my favorite verses. Ephesians 4:31 through 32. It says, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you.
So you may have a little more forgiveness to do this summer.
You might have a little more forgiveness to do this summer. And I think as parents, we need to set a good example of not being angry, no matter what our circumstances are. We're definitely not going to be perfect. I am in no way a perfect parent. I never will be a perfect parent. But I do apologize to my kids because I do want to show them what to do, but also to be proactive, because if we are aware that it's hotter outside and that tempers might flare a little more, what can we do to make sure that we can help our kids to get through whatever it is that they're needing to get through with that? Could it be that we are doing, like, one thing that we did is for outside, we got water guns for the boys because they were wanting to play outside still, to help them stay cool in the middle of the summer. And just whenever they come in, make sure that they drink something. I mean, there are practical things that we can do just to help them to stay calm and not be as angry as well whenever we know that it is hot outside. Give them some popsicles, give them some, just things to help cool them down.
For ice cream sandwiches and send them outside with it so it doesn't get all sticky on your floors.
Yeah.
I really like the verse in Psalms 4 that talks about it. In Psalm 4:4, it says, be angry and do not sin.
Yeah.
And then I love the last part of it, because a lot of people will remember the be angry and do not sin, but the last part of the verse says, ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent.
Be silent.
And sometimes when you're just finding that your temper is rising or your kid's temper is rising, quiet times in the summer are really a good idea because sometimes you just need a break. And, the whole saying about sometimes you either just need a snack or a nap is true. And no matter what age it is. And then verse 5, it says, offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. And so oftentimes I find myself when I'm a little short with whatever circumstances I'm dealing with, I've taken my eyes off of the Lord.
Yeah.
And I've started focusing on my circumstances or how other people are or are not cooperating. I mean, I'm that person that I can, incompetence can get to me fast. And so I just have to sit there and go, you know what? Am I trusting people or am I trusting the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a good check for ourselves because
Yeah,
who
and
are you trusting?
I think another thing is that whenever voices rise and the levels of a voice rises, as parents, it's important that our voice does not rise, but that our voice stays quiet, not in a condescending way, because I think that you can switch it and your motive not be right, but in a loving way of, I love you, and and as the adult here, I want to be the calmest person in the room, and I want to help you get through whatever it is that you're going through, because the Bible does say that we're supposed to be quick to listen, slow to speak. We're supposed to speak gently to others,
Slow to wrath.
slow to wrath. So how can we do that for our children and help them and model that for them as well?
And here's the thing, we're human. I mean, we were just talking about this earlier today. We're human, we're going to make mistakes.
Yes.
And so it's important to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
If you find that you have really gotten out of control with anger with your kids or whatever, apologize because that sets an example for them. Yes, we're setting an example. That's one of the things with discipleship
Mm-hmm.
is as the disciplers, we're setting an example.
We are. And notice what it is that does frustrate you or get you angry, because a lot of times, if you can see what that is, a lot of times it can be irritability. So, can you stop at irritability before you become angry?
Mm-hmm.
Is it certain times of day? Is it certain things? And is it worth the relationship with your child?
Yeah.
So is it a chore that they are consistently complaining about and not wanting to do? How can you work around that so that there is not anger? How can you encourage them? Has your response been correct to them? Because you never want to let something like that come between a relationship. And that's what anger can do. Anger can break relationships and hurt relationships. So how can we, as their parents, disciple them and show them ways and be proactive in ways? If you know that it's going to be an angry situation, what can you do to
Set up
lessen
the
that?
situation differently because I mean in Ephesians it does talk about fathers not provoking their children to wrath.
Exactly.
And this is not in any of the word, but mothers, we shouldn't be provoking.
We should not.
We should not be provoking our children to wrath either. And so I think it's really important that we do take proactive steps to try to mitigate some of that. However, there are going to be moments where your kids are frustrated with a situation or they have to do it anyway, even if they don't like to do it.
And they have strong emotions.
And that is a really amazing teachable moment and discipleship opportunity to work with them on what an appropriate response is that is God honoring.
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to create little whitewashed Pharisees where they look good on the outside.
No, exactly.
And their hearts are bitter and angry.
Yes.
That is not the goal.
That is not
the goal. And
so
all of these teachable opportunities that come up give us an opportunity to help them point their little hearts towards the Lord or their bigger hearts if it's teenagers.
Yes. Because we've had this conversation so many times. I do not want perfectly behaved children where their heart motive is not doing what they should be doing in love. I want to see their problems and I want to help them through it and I want to show them scripture.
She literally prays that her kids get caught in their sin.
I do. I pray that my kids get caught in their sin and I pray that they confess their sin. And I am always, always, always very open to confession. And I praise their confession because I want to know what's going on in their heart. They can act one way, but their hearts can be different. But seeing anger and seeing what actually causes that anger, that helps you to know their hearts. And that's what we want is we want to know the hearts of our children and we want to have our children's hearts. That's why I think it's so important that we do stay cool, that we do watch our anger and that we're careful. Now that does not mean guilt comes from Satan. You will be angry. Everyone in America gets angry. Everybody in the world gets angry. But it means that we're striving towards that in our own hearts and not.
Well, it was
not
interesting because as you say, everybody gets angry. I led a women's conference one time, and we're going to talk about this in a series upcoming in our podcast later. I'm really excited about it.
Yes.
But we did a session in this conference on anger, and I had some ladies in attendance who are those very meek, calm people pleaser, like you don't ever think that they would get mad at anything. Oh my goodness. The roots of anger and bitterness that get buried deep in our hearts. And it surprised a lot of them. And I did it at another conference and they're like, wow, I had no idea. But that's why it's so important to create that open environment for just being transparent with how they're and understanding that anger in and of itself isn't the sin. It's what they do with that anger, because it's a warning sign that they need to address something. And one of the verses that I also really like, that my dad, he would talk to us a lot about, and when I sold books door to door in the summertime, you want to talk about hot. And when you get told no a bunch when you go door to door, you can really have some attitude, some 6-inch mental stuff. But one of the things that we had an opportunity to really work on it was self-control. And the verse that we always would reference was Proverbs 25:28. A man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls.
Yes.
And it's not that you're not going to feel things. It's not that you're not going to have a response. It's what you do.
Yes. What does your response look like? Is it something that Jesus would want you to do? And a lot of times our responses shows what's inside of our heart.
Yeah. And so we just want to encourage you guys, as temperatures, no matter what temperature it is, wherever you're listening, it's probably warm.
It probably is.
Where most of our listeners are. And we just really want to encourage you all to understand that anger exists and what are some proactive steps that you can take. What are the trigger spots? If you know that you guys are going to be outside a lot and kids are going to be tired and cranky and hot, then what are some things you can do? For my kids, I knew that when we were going to go to like the zoo in the summer one time, I got those little fans that I could just clip on their stroller or their wagon, and that would help. Oh, hearts, even Zoom agrees. Fans are a great idea in the summer. But just think through and understand that your kids are watching. It's an example. You're not going to be perfect, but you get a lot of opportunities to model what living with self-control looks like.
Yeah.
When it's not cool outside.
So that's our goal for you this week, is to try to stay cool even though it's hot outside. If you do become angry, which you probably will because you're human, then give yourself grace. Tell your kids that you're sorry, move on, and work on it some more.
So thank you guys for joining us today, and we hope this was an encouragement for you. You can find us on any of your favorite podcast providers, such as YouTube or Spotify. I use AntennaPod. Like, it's all of them. Yeah. So please like, share, and subscribe. And all of the Bible studies and books that we have are available on trainingthemwisely.com or Amazon. Hope you guys have a great week.
Bye. Have a great week.